and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. I do mostly cooking, crafts, and sewing projects on this channel. And if you're returning, thank you for supporting this channel. This was an idea that I had that I came up with for a pie, a cheesecake pie, but using apple pie filling. And I know that there are other recipes out there very similar to this one, but if you want to use mine, I will have the written recipe in the description box below. I start out first of all by making a graham cracker pie crust. And for this, I am using 1 sleeve of graham crackers, which I am crushing with a rolling pin. I put them into a plastic bag first and sealed it well. Or if you're using graham crackers that are already crushed, you'll need 1.5 cups. If you have a food processor, that would definitely be a lot easier than doing it this way, to put the graham crackers into the food processor. So consider that if you have one. You could also make a pastry pie crust or purchase one from the grocery store if you didn't want to do a graham cracker pie crust. Just make sure that it is baked and cooled before you put the cheesecake filling into it. Next, I put 1 stick or 8 ounces of butter into my glass pie plate and put it in the microwave to melt the butter. And so I think that was on anywhere from 30 seconds to 40 seconds. If you leave it in too long, the butter will start to explode all over your microwave, so we don't want that to happen. Then I add the graham crackers to the butter with 1/4 cup of white granulated sugar and mix that up really well in the pie plate, and then form the pie crust by going up the sides and then patting it down on the bottom. After the pie crust is formed, then I put it in the oven, either at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 375 for 10 to 15 minutes, and bake it until it just starts to get a little color on it. And then I take it out of the oven and let it cool completely. This is a 10-inch pie plate, if you were wondering, because it doesn't look like there's going to be enough crumbs to coat this plate, but it worked out just fine. So anywhere from an 8 to a 10-inch pie plate, and you will have enough for a pie crust. You could also use a square baking dish to make this if you don't have a round pie plate. To make the crunchy crumb topping, I added 1 cup of flour to a bowl, and then I added 1/2 cup of granulated white sugar and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I also added 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and then 1 stick of very cold butter. You can cut the butter into the dry ingredients using a pastry blender. I was using plant butter, and so it's a lot softer than regular butter. So I just used my hands to get the crumbly texture. When that was all mixed together and chunky, I put it on a baking sheet lined with a piece of aluminum foil and put it into a 350-degree oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. Or when it starts to get a little golden brown. To make the cheesecake filling, I added cream cheese that was at room temperature to a deep bowl. Now the recipe calls for 2 packages of cream cheese that are 8 ounces each, but I had some in the refrigerator that I had used earlier in the week. It was not quite 8 ounces, so I went ahead and I used 1 whole package and then a partial package of cream cheese, and it worked out just fine. So anywhere from 1.5 to 2 packages. If you don't like an intense cheesy flavor, just go with 1 package. You can really do what you want with this. I also added 1/4 of a cup of granulated white sugar and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then I whipped this together really well till it was nice and smooth. And then I added 1 regular size, which is 8 ounces, of Cool Whip topping. If you don't live in the United States and you can't get Cool Whip topping, you can just use some cream that you've whipped, some whipping cream. So probably about a cup of whipping cream, and whip that up and then fold that into this cheese mixture. Cool Whip is sweet, so if you're whipping your own cream, you may want to add a little bit of sugar and some vanilla to it. I used my hand mixer to whip the cheese, sugar, and vanilla together, and then when I added the Cool Whip, I was using my hand mixer, but it wasn't combining the way that I wanted it to, so I ended up stirring it really well with a large spoon. This is what the crunchy crumb topping looks like as it came out of the oven. I had broken it up a little bit, but that needs to cool completely. And I am now adding the cheesecake layer to my cooled graham cracker pie crust. And so you need to be careful that when you spread that it doesn't lift the bottom of the pie crust up. And so I'm just spreading that evenly into the pie crust. Next, I just have a can of apple pie filling that I open and spread that on top of the cheesecake filling. And then I covered this with plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator to chill and set up a little bit. Mine was only in the refrigerator chilling for about 2 hours, and so when I cut it, it was very soft. But I think that if you chill it for 4 to 6 hours, 5 hours, I think that the cheesecake filling will firm up enough to get a nicer slice of pie from that. So into the refrigerator this goes while we eat our dinner. So after a couple of hours, I pulled the pie out of the refrigerator to finish assembling it. And I took the crunchy crumb topping, and it had cooled altogether. And so I am just breaking it into pieces and putting it on top of the apple layer of our cheesecake apple pie. You would think from looking at this that this is going to be so sweet that you can't eat it. But I was surprised that it was well balanced and it wasn't too sweet. So after I get the crumb topping evenly distributed on top of the apples, I have a jar of caramel sauce that I am just going to drizzle on top of the crumb mixture. Now, if you wanted to do this differently than I did, I mentioned that you could. You could probably put a layer of caramel on the cheesecake layer and then put the apples on, or you could put a layer of caramel sauce on top of the apples before you put the crumb mixture on. But I just drizzled some of the caramel on top like that. You could also serve extra caramel sauce on the side as you're having pie, as you're having your dessert, if people wanted to put more on top. But we went with that and we're pleased with how it turned out. So here you have apple cheesecake caramel crunch pie. It would be great for Thanksgiving or Christmas. It would be a little different if you have guests that like to try new things. We all really liked it a lot, and some of us are not very adventurous with pie tasting. We like what we like and we stick with that, but everybody liked this, and some went back for seconds. So here I am slicing it up, and like I said, it was very soft because it didn't sit for very long in the refrigerator. So you'll do better than I did, and you'll make it earlier in the day for dessert that night. And I really think that 4 to 6 hours you won't have any problems cutting this and having a nicer looking slice of pie. Thank you so much for joining me as I made this pie. Please hit that like button and leave a comment if you'd like to. I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd subscribe to my channel. And I hope you have a great day. Goodbye. You can see the Cardinals' red sweatpants in the background. The Cardinals were playing on this night. So that was just a fun side note. Another side note is this is a picture of the pie a day later as I cut into it. And so you can see that it did set up perfectly fine with a longer time in the refrigerator. Goodbye.